The Tim Heale Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.
Welcome to the Tim Heale Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to have a chat with Dwight. Dwight's going to tell us where and when he was born. He's going to describe what it was like where he grew up, the schools he went to, and the education that he received. So, Dwight, you're up and running.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. You're welcome.
Fantastic. I appreciate being on. Well, I grew up in a small farming community. Approximately, I live in a capital city of my province now, of Edmonton. For those that are listening, depending on where you live, province is just a landmass within a country. For the people in the States, a state is a state. And I grew up in a small farming community of about 10,000 people. My dad owned a farm equipment dealership, surrounded by farmers most of my life. My dad is one of 18 kids. Most of his relatives are farmers. My mom was one of 9. A lot of farmers again. And then again, my dad owning a farm equipment dealership. I grew up as a sickly kid. I had severe asthma, and back in the 70s, there was no real medication, no inhalers to help out with that. So going through elementary school was a struggle because I got bullied a lot because of my health issues. I was the kid picked last to go on to a team because I wasn't very, I wasn't going to be conducive to them winning or accomplishing things. So I felt very ostracized and alone going through elementary school. But I did, my parents are great. They're still alive in their 80s, but I grew up with a dad, again, who was an entrepreneur. My mom was a stay-at-home parent that, raised us really, because my dad was a workaholic, and just it got worse as I got older. I went from elementary school into junior high, and as you get, more gangly, I guess, or you're more, puberty starts kicking in. I got diagnosed with a rare degenerative spine disorder, which I suffer from today, and it affects my health, called scoliosis. And there's different varieties. I unfortunately got hit with one of the worst types of scoliosis in my spine. And I ended up having to wear a back brace. By the time I was in grade 9, I had to wear a full cage brace, and it affected my 6 inches between my ears. It affected how I was able to learn in school. I had very low self-esteem, got teased and bullied a lot. So it just amplified from getting teased and bullied because of my asthma and allergies. And it taught me to be, somebody that was very bitter. I was very angry about life. Like, how could this happen? Why, why God, why has this happened to me? And I had to wear this right going into high school. And again, it continued on. But then all of a sudden, by the time I hit grade 11, I got it off because they put it on me to control my growth spurt so that I wouldn't be hunched over the rest of my life. And I hit 6 feet in height. Well, all of a sudden, I was taller than a bunch of people in high school, and I started bulking up a bit, and nobody picked on Dwight anymore, right? They left me alone. So, but by this time, I had already had a lot of scarring mentally and emotionally. And I was introverted. I just hid from everybody. And
let me just take you back a little bit. Let me just take you back just a little bit.
Sure.
You said that your dad came from one of how
18.
many? 18?
Yeah.
And this is in Canada?
Yeah.
And your mum from one of 9?
Yeah, my mom was one of 9. Her dad passed away when she was 14 with heart disease. Otherwise, they probably would have had a bigger family. Both European families, both German descent. So my mom's family probably would have been bigger too. She was 14. Both families had farms, right? Both of them were big farming families and out of the farming community in rural Alberta. And one was in rural Saskatchewan.
Like there, then?
Pardon me?
What were the winters like?
What are the winters like here?
Yeah.
Well, it depends.
Are they all like summer babies, are they?
Like we joke about, everybody says, oh, I had to walk through the snow 2 miles uphill, and then when I come home, I had to walk 2 miles uphill. Everything's an exaggeration. So we have times where the snow is incredible here. We get a lot of snow, and then there's winters where we hardly get any. Like it's I don't know if it's global warming or Mother Nature just playing with us, giving us that false sense of no snow, and then all of a sudden we get dumped on. Like this past winter, we had an excessive amount of snow in Canada, but prior to that, it had been in Edmonton, not Canada. I don't want to speak for the whole country because the weather's different from coast to coast. We had probably it would have been 2011 the last time we had a big dump of snow, and so we had a lot of snow. Depending on who's listening, you could go by feet. We probably had 5-6 feet of snow. If you're going in centimeters, that's probably about 180 centimeters, roughly. We had a lot of snow, right? Yeah. So, and it is what it is. It's life. But yeah, that could be a reason why there was so many babies. I had 5 kids, so the snow wasn't as bad.
Kids, surely. So it's pretty fertile country up in that part of Canada then.
Yes, absolutely. We're keeping the population of the world going.
And do they all live in the same area now?
My uncles and aunts or my kids?
Yeah.
My uncles and aunts, my extended family, out of the 18, there's 9 that are still alive. I believe it's 9. It might be 10. They're all within, if I was to jump in a vehicle and drive, they're all within, I think the farthest relative of mine lives 3 hours away. Right?
Pretty close in Canadian terms.
Yeah, about 3-hour drive on my dad's side of the family. On my mom's side of the family, that'd be about the same because they're all living in Saskatchewan, which is a province right to the, if you looked at Canadian map, it goes British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, right? So that's where my mom grew up, was on a farm on the border of Saskatchewan and Alberta, and that's how my dad and her met. But yeah, they're all close. And they're all relatively healthy, the ones that are still alive. My parents, my dad is 81. My mom just turned 81 about 10 days ago. So
yeah, well, it must be something in the air there then. So
it's the water.
Yeah, something in the water. Something to do with long dark winter nights.
Yeah,
and not a lot of entertainment, I guess.
Well, that's entertainment. It depends. It's just a short series.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously from that you must have loads and loads of cousins.
Oh yeah, there's I can't remember the exact count. There's about 63 cousins on my dad's side of the family, and there's 40 plus on my mom's side. The problem is when you have family that big, and when you're growing up, we've seen them. We go to reunions and we'd have weddings and graduations. We'd see cousins. But then as you grow up, I got married, started having kids myself, or my ex-wife did, obviously, not I. But, we started having kids, and then they have all their extracurricular activities. They have all their things that are keeping them busy. We have our own careers. We have our own things. And then you start sliding apart. And then really, when you think about it, even though my kids are all adults now and I have grandkids, that connection's broken. It's almost impossible to have that connection come back because, again, now I have my grandkids' lives that I'm interjected into, and I'm interjected into my adult kids' life. They don't all live close to me, so I'm traveling to see them. And then I have my business that I travel for. So, really, those listening, when you have cousins or aunts and uncles you're close with, when you're younger, in my experience, because even with my clients, that's a memory, a snapshot in time that is impossible to ever recapture. You might stay close to a couple of your cousins, but when you have like 100, like I do, it's really hard.
I guess one of the hardest bit is remembering all their names.
Oh my gosh. Or I talk to my folks and they're telling me about this aunt's, son or daughter, and then they have kids, and I'm just nodding my head and smiling because I just like, it's like go right over my head, right? So
So I guess the Christmas card list is fairly extensive then.
oh my gosh, I don't even bother.
And
I have
what if you miss one out?
Yeah, I don't bother. My mom does. My mom still
Yeah,
does in her 80s, does cards to everybody, and she gets a crap load of cards. My one sister does, and my other sister doesn't. But, you know, it's pattern behavior. We see stuff
yeah,
that people do. Are we going to copy it? I just couldn't be bothered, especially when my kids were so young and I became a single parent. It was like that
yeah,
is not on my radar. My
yeah.
radar was just getting them fed, getting laundry done, getting their homework done, getting them to extracurricular activities, and start and rinse and repeat the next day. Right. So that was just not in the cards for me to worry about giving a card.
Yeah, fair one. So let's get back to your schooling. So
Sure.
your elementary school, you had a pretty rough time going through there. You had this brace on, and then you went to still had it on when you went up to high school.
Yeah.
So it came off, and then obviously you had to take it fairly easy. So I guess you weren't playing a lot of sports. You weren't playing football or
No,
rugby.
I wasn't allowed to because the brace I had on, I don't know if people can watch your podcast or not, but for those listening, just visualize the fact that I had a 2-inch bar that came from underneath my chin. I had a chin support. 2-inch bar went down, and it had a leather crowel that pushed my stomach in up into my rib cage. I had 2 1-inch bars behind where where it held my head in place. They went down and connected to the corral around the back, and it basically I couldn't move my head. Right, so I wasn't able to play sports. Would have been a liability issue. I
Mm.
wasn't allowed to take it off. I was only allowed to take it off for 1 hour a day in that 3 years
Oh,
that I wore it. So 23 hours a day I had to wear it. I was allowed to take it off for 1 hour a day to shower. And then I had extensive exercises I had to do. And
mm,
so, yeah, I couldn't do sports in the latter part of junior high and grade 9, like in middle school up to high school, grade 10 and 11. And I had to do a lot of reports and stuff because I couldn't participate. I had to take gym to get the credits to graduate. I played sports when I was really young. Before any of that happened, I played ball, I played hockey. I was a general rambunctious kid to a certain extent because remember, I also
mm,
had very bad asthma, and they didn't have the inhalers they have today and
mm.
the medications to control it. That didn't exist. My first inhaler I never got till I was just about 18. Right. So, yeah, unfortunately, I participated and I went to a lot of sports and watched it. My dad played a lot of
Mm.
sports. He was the whole family, all his brothers and sisters, and on both sides of family, there was lots of sports people. So I'd go and watch. I'd participate. I'd be the bat boy at a ball game, or I'd be the stick boy at a
Mm.
hockey game when my dad was playing hockey. So I lived vicariously through my father because I couldn't do it because of my health.
Mm. So going through high school, then I guess you had to concentrate more on um, your studying rather than being athletic. So
Yeah.
what was your best subject?
Um, in school, one of my favorite subjects was physics. I liked physics and biology, and I also really excelled in computers because back then it was the early 80s, like 1980, 82, and there was computers were coming in, the IBM computers, and we had our
Mm.
lab. And I felt a lot of solace and peace in the computer lab. And I became friends with the computer teacher. His name was Mr. Byers. He took me under his wing, and I started learning how to code and program. And he'd let me go into the lab, when I couldn't do certain things with sports or field trips or whatever. He'd let me go in there, and I ended up joining the computer club, and I started going to competitions and competing on an academic level at different universities and colleges around Alberta. We drive and we compete as a team and
Mm.
programming contests and coding contests. And so that I really liked. Also in high school, I loved machine shop. Right. I thought that was fantastic. I liked foods. I like things that I could be creative, I guess would be the best way to put it, because I was creating and coding food. I like cooking. I still do today. I created, I'm creating things. I even liked sewing class and stuff like that. So I had to, because I couldn't be physically active on the sports front where people belong to sports teams and they were jumping on a bus on a Thursday and gone till Monday to go to some school outside of the city of Camrose, the little town I grew up in. They'd be out doing that. I'd be working in the lab, or I'd be in, working on something, I'd go into the shop where I became friends with the shop guy that did the motors. He taught me about motors and how to rebuild the little small engine motors. And I just did things that I could be active, but I couldn't be active like somebody playing football, basketball, or, stuff like that.
All right. So that was, I guess that was a really good thing for you. You're fairly practical, and you're able to do all that practical stuff. So what happened when you kind of graduated high school? What did you do what did you move on to?
Well, when I graduated high school, I decided to go into computer engineering at college here in Edmonton. So the capital city, an hour away from where I grew up in Camrose. I went into that, even though I was good at it, it really wasn't resonating with me. So I stayed in that program for about a year and a half, and I left that program, and I ended up getting a job. And I was hired by a man that's still a mentor of mine today, 30 years later. And he hired me to work at his alarm company. And I worked in the monitoring station. I monitored alarms. I monitored security. I monitored everything you can think of. We were in like literally a bunker where you could drop a bomb on it so nobody could get in to get you. And he one day decided to pull me out of there, and I decided installing alarm systems. And he got me to go out and learn how to install card access systems, closed circuit cameras. And he told me one day, he says, "Dwight, you're wasting. You're a smart guy. You could go so much farther with this company, with me. Go back to school." So I applied and went into electronics engineering at the same college that I was in computer engineering. And 2 years later, graduated from that. There was 185 of us that started and 18 of us that graduated. And I was one of those 18. And then that period of time, I also got married. So in school, so the last year that I finished off, I was married. I married a lady that had a child, and I adopted her. And then we had kids of our own as well. And yeah, I ended up graduating, and he wanted me to come back, but I all of a sudden was smarter than what I thought he could offer, if that makes sense. And I went and worked for a company called Canadian Standards Association, a certification company. And literally from there, I ended up, like, the story would take way too long. I ended up getting an opportunity to take over all their IT stuff after hours. And because of that, I took over all their computer work after hours. And it was taken away from my job for them working in their lab, that I ended up quitting working for them, bought out a computer company, brought on a partner, brought out a computer company, had a retail computer store, a service-based company, and a consulting firm, and proceeded to run that for the next 9 years.
So the poor bugger that encouraged you to go back to college, he didn't fund you through college then?
No, he didn't. He didn't fund me.
Work for him during.
I worked during school. I worked for him. He still wanted me to come in, and even after I graduated, and I started and working for CSA, and then starting that buying that computer company, that firm, he was still getting me. He called me up and asked me to go out and do the odd job for him because he knew he could trust me. So even then, for years after the fact, I was still going out, and he'd say, "Will you go install this alarm system for me? Will you go will you go check the work?" Like, I would go check work for people he had work for him full time, or finish up jobs, because I'm a tenacious person. When
Yeah.
I learn something, and I do it right. I don't mess around. So, and we're still friends today. Was he butthurt at the time that I didn't come back and work for him? Yeah, but he wasn't willing to offer. I was married. I had a child, I had a child. We had another child on the way, and he wasn't willing to pay me what I needed to survive. Whereas I had other opportunities that were going to pay me better now because I have my electronics engineering, right? So it is what it is. Sometimes I didn't do it intentionally to hurt him, but the grand scheme of things, my family comes first. My life works on three core values: faith, family, and work. And his work is is below my family, right? So,
well, so many people don't do that. So many people put work above everything, and I think that hurts people in the long run. I mean, work you should be able to work to live, not the other way around. And so many people kind of get that wrong. They set their goals of what they need to earn so high. They need to push so hard, and that's a detrimental effect on their family, and their lives and their health. So that's a good way of looking at life. I mean, to look after the family as number one.
well, my dad was a workaholic. So I'd get up in the morning, he'd be gone to work. I'd go to bed at night, he wouldn't be home. He was an entrepreneur, very successful entrepreneur, but he put work above family. And part of that, though, is his patterns that he learned growing up on a farm with 18 kids. He always had that scarcity mentality, so he was always scared that he'd lose everything. So he worked, right? And I did slip in. That'll be honest with your listeners. I did slip into periods in time where I was a workaholic. I woke up one day and realized I was going to get my kids full time, not just have joint custody of them. And I said to myself, I prayed lots. God, what do you want from me? And the resounding answer always came back to my core values that I had learned since I was a kid. It was faith and family above all else. Work just enough to pay the bills, which is what I was only able to, raising 5 kids on my own. And, my dad, bless his heart, loved him to pieces. He did what he thought was right. Right. But, in his 80s now, he wished he would have spent more time. But now he spends more time with us and we see them a lot. He spends a lot of time with his great grandkids and his grandkids. And, he can't make up for lost time, but he can sure put an effort in and recover and create memories. It's never too late to create memories and live a life on purpose.
Absolutely. And I think from that perspective, I mean, the kids, grandkids, great grandkids won't realize what they have in your granddad or in your dad until he's gone, and then it's too late. And that's one of the reasons that I started my podcast in the first place, is to be able to leave that legacy. So in years to come, my kids, grandkids, great grandkids can look back and know what I did with my life, and won't have a regret that they didn't spend more time at the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's amazing though. Good for you, because I tell people that all the time. They said, why did you, because I started my podcast in November 2020 during the pandemic. I wrote my book from the fall of 2020 till end of February 2021 and launched my book. And they'll say, well, why do you do that? Because of grandkids that aren't even alive yet will always know if their papa died today, they're going to have lots of information to go and see. They'll be able to listen to, at this time, 80 some podcasts. They'll be able to go and listen to me be interviewed on over 20 some podcasts. They'll be able to read my book. They'll be able to watch all my videos, my my vlog posts, like my video blogs that I do. And I'm creating my legacy now. I don't think legacy is just when you die. You have to have a living legacy. You have to be a good example for your living, anybody around you, your children, your significant others, and
absolutely
show them a good pattern. And then if you pass away, they have that template to follow.
Yeah.
Right. So I agree with you. Good for you. Congratulations.
I joined in on one of the events that Podmatch put on the other week, and Alex was saying that you have to focus in on who your avatar is to be able to sort of grow your channel. And he went on about his avatar and what it was and who it was, and who he was targeting his podcast at. And he said, "Well, who's your avatar?" Well, my avatar hasn't been born yet. my avatar is a bunch of kids 100 years from now.
Yeah.
Looking back in a history lesson, looking at what we did with our time in history.
That's great.
I thought that was quite amusing. So I don't know. He's not been born yet.
Yeah, for me, it's you talk about the avatar. I get asked that question because I belong to a couple podcasting mastermind groups too, where we discuss stuff. And I tell people, well, my name of my podcast, my book, my brand, my last name's Heck. So I created that into a brand. I give a heck. And my target avatar is anybody that gives a heck or is struggling to want to give a heck and doesn't believe that they can climb out of their despair, their quiet desperation, or their hamster wheel of life, like I talk about in my book. It's just, if honestly, and it's not putting myself on a soapbox, but if I can get through what I've gotten through and be where I am today, and I've raised 5 kids and none of them are in jail, Tim. So that's a good thing.
In itself, isn't it, nowadays?
Exactly. Let's pat myself on the back for that. For those listening, I'm physically doing that. Right? Bottom line, life's in session. This isn't a dress rehearsal. And the more information in a technology-driven world that I can record or put on paper or electronically for people to ensure that all that's inside of me never dies, that one more person might climb out of their quiet desperation and succeed in life and stop being camped, it's all worth it, right? Because podcasting isn't going to make me a wealthy person. I don't know about you, but I've only had mine going a short period of time. So it's still working on bringing in my avatar and, those type of people and the guests that have gone through the struggle, that have risen above it. And, not everybody wants to hear that. It's tough sometimes. People don't want to hear the fact that their lives are on a hamster wheel.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm fortunate. I retired 4 years ago, so and I'm able to just about scrape by on my pension. So for me, it's not about making money. I'm not bothered about monetizing my podcast. My drive is to leave a legacy for future generations to look back on people's lives at this time in history. Because we can't really do it for people. The reason I actually started was I was doing some research on ancestry, and I came across my great granddad, who was in the Royal Navy. He lived over in Portsmouth, just a spit from where I am. He was a chief stoker in the Navy, and I'd love to have gone back and had a chat with him about his life and what he did. And because I haven't got a time machine, I can't do it. And I think that his story is lost. You can find certain bits of paper about him and his history, but that's as far as it can go. You can't get his story told by him. So that's how I got into this in the first place, to tell my story. And then I did 24 half-an-hour episodes of my life. And so anybody out there that is suffering from insomnia and needs something to help them to get sleep, give it a go.
Yeah, it's important.
And then where'd you go from there? So why not only give other people the chance to tell their life story? And this is where we are.
Yeah, and that's why I wrote my book. Like my book, my Give a Heck book, right? How to Live Life on Purpose and Not by Accident, was specifically starts at my origin. Some of the things I've shared with you today, it's 150 pages. It's easy read, but it doesn't get every single detail, but it gives enough details and information that I'm not going to die in history. There'll at least be, somebody that's got a dusty cover of the book holding and propping up the edge of their couch. All right.
Yeah.
It's gonna be there. Right. So yeah, I
Brilliant.
appreciate the fact that you're doing this. That's great.
So let's get back to your life then. So you finished your college, you've got this degree in electronics, and you mugged the poor bloke off that suggested that you go and get some qualifications.
Yeah.
And you went to a bigger company that was able to put a bit more bread on the table.
Yeah. And I was there for a little bit and took over their IT stuff, and I was working. It was crazy. On my days off, I'd go in. I'd go in and deal with all because they had a lot of staff there, and I'd deal with all their mainframe work, because back then there was mainframes. For those listening, that's the advent of where the computer started before they got the personal computer. I dealt with all that, sold them their product. Then I started getting more clients on top of that, plus trying to work that 9-to-5 job. It was just too much, right? So I just gravitated away from there. As I said, started my own little business, and then that business, within 8 months, I purchased that other company I mentioned, and I had to leave and just push forward. But then I had some severe health issues in about 1997, 98, around there, and I ended up having to reevaluate the computer company. So I went and started doing work for other people and doing consulting, as like being hired as a consultant. Got rid of a couple arms in my computer company. Had some severe health issues in the year 9/11 happened in 2001, and I pivoted into the finance industry. The same friend that got me into the alarm industry, that encouraged me to go to school, reached out to me in 2002 and said, "I think you'd be good at finance and you could use some help yourself." Right. So, that's what he told me. He says, and because he had pivoted away from the alarm industry, was now in finance industry, and says, "I think you should come get into the finance industry." And that's 20 years ago. Actually, it would have been 20 years ago in February that he reached out to me. And by the fall of 2001, I had started my own agency. I was in finance. I went away from computer industry because the medical professionals told me it was too hard on my mental and physical health. And I've been out in this industry. This is my 20th year. It's been quite the roller coaster ride. Some of it in a valley to spare, some of it on the mountain. It's all good. You can't enjoy life or understand happiness without despair. So
no, absolutely not. So the same guy that encouraged you to go to college was the same guy that got you into finance and said you need to take someone on for that. Did you take him on?
I got it. He initially, I was part of his business, and for about, would have been 5 years, and I didn't like how things were going. I had, on a financial level, because I'm very analytical, he was more worried about recruiting people. I was more worried about relationship building and helping people do the right things. And my, the other agents in my own agency, because my agency was part of his, and then helping my clients out, that I ended up leaving him. We didn't talk for quite a few years. He didn't take it too well. But I had to worry about myself. I had to worry about my family and what was best. So once again, I parted ways. Well, you're going to love this next part of the story. In 2016, he reached out, about 2014, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I really want you to come back. You're one of the top financial minds in Canada and in the US," because I used to train for them on different principles and strategies. I'm just an analytical kind of guy. And where a lot of the people are transactional based, I'm relationship based. I'm about getting to the root of it and doing it more organically and helping people out and building that relationship. And him and the president of department of the company that got me started in Canada reached out and said, "Hey, we want you to come back." So I said, "Okay, well, I'm not closing down my brokerage. I've spent this many years. I've done it. I don't need to." "Well, we want you to do this." And they tugged at my heartstrings, right? They wanted me to, because I thought, well, I didn't like how they did things before. If they're going to give me an opportunity to create some training for them and to do some stuff for them, I will. So for the first couple of years, they did. They allowed me to do stuff and teach people, but then they slipped back into their old habits of wanting just to throw spaghetti at the wall and bring people in and be transactional based. So when the pandemic hit in 2020, I said to them, "Well, I'm exercising this clause in my contract and I'm leaving." And I left. And that same friend that's helped me and, constantly reached out to me over the last 30 years, him and I are no longer communicating once again. But again, it's not that I don't love and care for him and appreciate it. I've reached out to him and told him how much I care about him. It's not about him. It's about me. It's about my family and the legacy that I want to represent to the world, the living legacy. What example am I setting out there in the world? And if I would have stayed within that firm, I would have been a hypocrite, because I coach people, lifestyle and finance coach people now for this is my 20th year on how to live life on purpose, how to connect with people through their mind, right? Their body and their soul and their heart, and do the right things always. And I didn't see them in the same light as they seen themselves. So I couldn't be a hypocrite. I couldn't live that way. And it was bothering me. And I had to do what was best for me. And again, back to faith, family, work. My faith, my God was, I prayed and God was saying, "Hey, you got to do what's right for your fellow humans. You can't, it can't be about what their drive is. And that's always to make more money," which it is, and bring in more people and train more agents. I just couldn't do that. I'd rather have one agent, train them well. I'd rather have 10 clients that are really well taken care of than the thousands they have that are kind of, have little pieces of the puzzle, but not the whole picture. So I'm wired differently, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the pandemic kicked in. Did that change the way that you did your business?
Oh, my business crashed. The beginning of 2020, Tim, I was on track to have one of the best years I had since 2015, because we're an energy country, a province and a country. Our province is the third largest oil reserves in the world. The energy industry crashed in 2015. Business went down, came back, and it was I was starting to finally get my momentum back. 2020, I was on track in the first couple months before everything locked down in March to have the best year that I'd ever had, just on my personal side, not my agency. And the pandemic hit, and I had to reevaluate things. And that's why I decided to leave, execute that part of the contract, and left that company, because they were wasting my energy and time. And I have met some other people over the last few years. A gentleman by the name of Tony Watley. He runs an organization called the 365 Driven. And it's about doing the right things, creating relationships, very family centric, you can have your cake and eat it too processes, where you can still have success. You get to decide what your level of success is, not anybody else. And it will help you with your thought processes and building whatever. And he's the one that one day we were talking, and there was a lady, he was recording his podcast. I didn't have mine yet. And he says, "Come on, watch my podcast." He'd have it on his closed group. I'm going to record this podcast. He invited me and a bunch of people to come and watch. Well, I started watching this podcast, and there was a lady on there. You can look her up. Her name's Alexander Watkins. Eat My Words is her book, and she's a branding specialist. And after the podcast was recorded, we had a closed Q&A session. We could ask her questions, and she asked me what the name of my company was, and I told her at the time, and she said, "That's stupid." All right. She said and then she explained the psychology behind it. Well, then we started knocking some names around. Within hours, my friend Tony, who I'd only known for a little over a year and a half, started sending me different recommendations. What the heck, this and that. And then he sent me one saying, well, give a heck. We talked about that. You can get the domain right now. It's still available. You can do this, you can do that. And he just encouraged me. Nothing in it for him. We were just friends at that time. I hadn't joined his mastermind. I just joined his private closed group, or pardon me, his closed group where we mentored, everybody mentors and he oversees and helps too. And basically I did that. I got a website created. By July, I had the trade name registered, July of 2020, and I haven't slowed down since with the Give a Heck brand. I started going on to, went into a podcast mastermind to learn how to become a guest. Started being on some shows, met some great people from there. One of the ladies I met, she has a podcast called Waking Up with Patty Catter. I was a guest on her show, and she has 2.5 million downloads an episode every week on week. Yes.
I've got a little bit of catching up to do there.
Oh my gosh. She took me under her wing and encouraged me to do the podcast. Tony and everybody have been encouraging me, but she was tenacious. She kept on reaching out to me. She lives in Florida in the US, husband's military vet, and she just encouraged me. She helped me hook up with her production company that produces her show. She encouraged me. She was one of my first dozen guests. She was just amazing, and she still connects with me today because of our relationship and what we created. She created her own podcast arm of her business where she teaches people how to create their own podcasts because of just how encouraging she was to me. And I kept on telling her, you should do this. Like, you're amazing. You're so kind, but you're articulate. You're able to help. And so next thing I know, November 2020, got a podcast, Give a Heck podcast. And because of the gentleman, Tony Watley, I mentioned, I went to an event in Utah during the pandemic. I went in Utah in the mountains, and we hiked and did stuff, but he had a day of where he had speakers and stuff. And that's where I met my publisher. And that's how I ended up starting my book in October of 2020 and released it in March of 2021. And it's not what you know and who you know that counts. Is so true. And those people that you get to know, that network, are those associations conducive to you climbing and leveling up in life and giving a heck. And I was blessed and highly favored. God brought these people into my life in some of the darkest moments of my life. I look back and I've had that gentleman that helped me with the alarm stuff, with getting into electronics, to getting into finance. God brings people to us. We pray, we beg for help, whether you're a God-fearing or you're a person that just believes in the universe or God or whatever brings things to you. You got to be aware to say, hey, why am I keeping on saying I need this help? Bring this to me. And then we pray, hey, why aren't you helping me? Well, meanwhile, there might have been 5 people been brought in front of your face and you just ignored it. We have to have self-awareness is a big thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to faith and church and all the rest of it, I'm a hatch 'em, match 'em, dispatch 'em type. Sort of.
Well, to each their own, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't judge anybody.
It's the Church of England. They encourage you to go to baptisms, weddings, and funerals. Seems to be more funerals than anything else nowadays.
Yeah, well, even in my life, I've had so much loss. And that's part of the reason why I do what I do now, to work on my living legacy and to ensure that the music inside of me, all the knowledge that I've learned through the trials and tribulations doesn't die, that somebody generations from now, as you mentioned, will be able to find that information and still me touch their lives, even though I'm long gone.
Talking about being long gone and reaching out from the future. I mean, podcasting is a growing industry at the moment. Now, if you look back sort of 20 or 30, 40, 50 years, the technology that we had back then is redundant now. It's really difficult. If you look just 20 or maybe 30 years when VCRs came out, how many people got VCRs nowadays?
Yeah. Well, the VCR came out in the 70s, so yeah, it's kind of a boat anchor.
Yeah, when I got a bunch of cassettes in the toy shed.
So do I. I got
a
two
means to
shelves
play
full.
them. No, I haven't got a means to play them anymore.
Oh,
And
I
it's
do.
all stuff that, recordings that I made at the time of different stuff.
I had a bunch of mine converted to DVD. You could look at doing that. I sent them off to a company and had them converted and put on DVD, and then they put them on a hard drive for me. I did it about 10 years ago.
Yeah,
so the home videos.
I could do that. Some of it I did. I did it myself, so I had the means to do it a few years ago. I haven't got the means anymore, but yeah, it's so the technology we've got today, the formats that we're using, we're going to have them in years to come, or is it going to evolve? Is it going to be able to? Are we going to be able to keep this format, or convert it to the new format in years to come? What do you reckon?
Well, based on my technology background, I look at the fact of when I first got into computers. We'll dial it back to there to give people that are listening an idea. Back then, we had floppy disks, 5.25-inch floppy disks, and that was it. There was no hard drives on the computer. They were all hooked up to one central hard drive, which today's my Apple Watch that I'm wearing has more memory, like 1,000 times more memory than we had back then in the 80s. And I look at all that information that was on floppy drives that is lost forever. So, today though, when I mentioned the fact that I got my home recordings, videos or on VHS tapes or even on the small digital tapes put onto DVD. Well, I had to foreshadow it at the time. I paid the extra money and they dumped it onto a portable hard drive. Well, is that portable hard drive going to even still function in the future? So I think we have to take responsibility as a society if we want our information, our pictures, whether they're on a negative or print film, if we scan them or whatever, to make sure that we put them up. Like I've been starting to put stuff up into the cloud. Like I have cloud storage, and I have more than one cloud storage, and I've given the passwords to my kids so that they can access it, because I have about 150,000 digital pictures that are uploaded right now. Right? From all the time when they were little, to different events, to baptisms, to weddings, to birthdays, to holidays. And because I'm so paranoid that what you said, is it still going to be accessible? Is it going to be I'm not relying on anybody in life to ensure that that's still available. I'm relying on me. So I foreshadow the fact that what you were saying, technology is going to change. Who knows what the next medium is going to be? Look at DVDs are pretty much dead. CDs pretty much dead. Right? So we need to understand what's the next wave. Well, the biggest wave over the last decade's been cloud technology.
Yeah,
right?
digital.
But you got to also then you got to worry about to make sure that your subscriptions are paid, because I die and all of a sudden nobody's paying that subscription. Bye-bye. There goes all your data.
It is a concern. I mean, how will all of this survive in the future when they start bringing in a different type of media to store it?
Well, I think there will be different media, guaranteed.
Yeah.
But what we have to do is, as a society, like you and I want to keep history. Back in the day, history 100 years ago, a lot of it was in print. And even that's been lost. There's a chance it'll survive, but even that's lost because it's lost to the elements. It's lost to somebody rooting through somebody's estate stuff because they've passed and tossing it away because it doesn't have any relevance to them. They're not somebody that was ever taught about, connection to the past or their family. So they toss it away, and that's history's gone forever. So
it's like going through old photographs. if you haven't got the context of the photograph and there's nothing written on the back who it is, doesn't mean anything to you.
Well, they look at it, they don't know who it is.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, yeah, it's definitely a concern. I believe, though, to answer what you were commenting on, I think we need to take onus and responsibility ourselves if we want to ensure the future knows that we weren't just a hiccup, a blip, right? Because 5-6 generations from now, great grandpa Dwight, okay, grandpa Heck, blah blah blah. And I've been thinking about this, talking about it with my sisters. I'm gonna actually go and sit and do podcast recordings of my mom and dad while they're still lucid, while they're still able to, and I want to record all that stuff. And I keep on procrastinating to do it because just I allow life to get in the way. But I'm going to do it. I'm not going to go and drive and see them to do it. They have iPads that my sisters and I got them. I'm going to get them to hook up because I use Zoom to record, and I'll start doing it maybe once a week, hook up with my mom on her iPad or my dad and start recording them and asking them questions.
Yeah.
And,
well, I did my mum. My mum was the first one I did.
Good for you. Yeah. So how many hours did you spend doing that? How many hours did you spend doing that?
We've done it a lot, but the actual podcast of my mum is about half an hour. But I might go back and get some more. Now I'm doing everything remotely, and I'm doing everything on StreamYard. I've used lots of different platforms. I started off with Zoom and the like, but I couldn't get on with it. But since I started using StreamYard, it's transformed how I do my podcast. And it's great because I do some live streaming as well on a Thursday, a 2-hour show on a Thursday, where I live stream, and I can do that all in StreamYard.
Yeah, I do that all in Zoom. Zoom allows me. I recorded a podcast on Saturday with a lady that's just releasing a book I've known for 19 years, very successful. And we did it live, and I streamed it to Facebook, right? I know StreamYard, I think, allows you to stream with a lot more platforms, though, right?
Yeah,
so
you can do. It does. I stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn simultaneously, and that goes out, and then I can record. This is recording. This is what it'll look like when it goes out. I'll drop it down, put a top and tail on it in Adobe Audition, Adobe Premiere Pro, and then I can upload it onto YouTube, and it'll be there. And then the audio, I bring down the 2 tracks, and I just give them a little bit of beefing up, and top and tail it again, and then that goes out on Buzzsprout, and then across all the different platforms that Buzzsprout goes out to. So
that's awesome.
It'll all be around in the future, and hopefully where they update the different media and stuff like that, it'll evolve it and save it. So.
Well, I think, like, I use Anchor, which is owned by Spotify, and mine gets up to 11 different platforms. I have my YouTube channel. Even if we pass tomorrow, your podcast is still going to be there, right? There's 3 million and some active podcasts out of 300 and some million that have been created since podcasting became a thing. So even podcasters that they say an average podcaster doesn't make it past 5 episodes. Well, guess what? Their episodes are still there. You can look for them, right? So I think you and I have a good shot of still being around decades from now.
I found out the other day that about listen notes, and I'm in the top 10% of podcasts.
Oh, good for you. How long you been podcasting for?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years this month.
Yeah, I'm in the top 10% as well. and then they have that metric where it's how many percent are listening, and my number goes up and down. And then I look at people that I know, like Patty. She's in the top 1%. Tony's in the top 1% for their podcasts, but Tony's been 5 years podcasting.
Yeah.
And she's been podcasting for more than a decade. And, it's just time in the game. Just keep on pushing and moving on,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, listen notes is pretty powerful.
Well, the way I look at it is that since I joined Podmatch, it just seems that there's an exhaustible amount of people out there to talk to.
And I belong to two.
Everybody's got their own story.
I use Matchmaker FM and I use Podmatch, and I have a plethora. I get applications. Podmatch, like it's crazy how many people I reach out to me on both Matchmaker FM and Podmatch, right? So it's just, I need to get on more shows. Like that's why I hadn't done anything in probably 4 or 5 months. But you can go on to, that's another thing too. You can find out what shows your guests have been on, including yourself, by going to Owlnet. I don't know if you've ever used that, but that's another product.
I've not heard of that one.
Owlnet, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's wrap this up, and then we'll have another little bit of a chat.
Sure.
So, thanks very much, Dwight. That's been a fascinating chat. A proper fascinating chat today. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I appreciate you.
And we'll put where your book's coming out and all the rest of it in the description.
My book's out already. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
You bet.
The Tim Heale Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.